welcome to the journey. We have Jason Swett here. Jason,
Hello.
aka the Professor Jason.
That's what some people call me.
So Jason's a West Michigan entrepreneur, developer, and software consultant. You run a website and a blog to help Angular for Rails developers. And then in addition, I was reading around, and it looks like in the process of learning, you got so mad one day that you went and wrote a book. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and get us started on a conversation here?
Sure. Well, I wrote a book last year. And when I say I wrote a book, it's not like a big published book or anything like that. It's just an ebook. In fact, the first version of it was like less than 50 pages. So when I say I wrote a book, like, you might be impressed by that, but don't be. And let me give a little let me back up and give a little backstory to that. So historically, I'm a computer programmer. I've been doing that since like the mid-90s, and I've worked in a number of jobs over the years. I started as a hobbyist in the mid-90s, and then I've been in the industry kind of professionally since around 2000, on and off, but mostly on. And I discovered at some point in time that I really don't like jobs. And I decided at one point that I never wanted to have a job again. And so I got fired from a job, and I said, I'm not going to go get a different job at this point. I'm just going to be self-employed. That was in 2011. And so I've been freelance since then. There have been a couple occasions where I went back and got a job, and it was a total mistake. And then I went back to freelancing. But most of the last 6 years have been freelancing. But also, I don't want to, even though freelancing is better than having a job, I don't want to be a freelancer forever. I don't want to like work for other people, implementing other people's plans and working on making other people rich, basically. If I'm going to be doing all this work anyway, might as well be the beneficiary of that work that I'm doing. So I decided to start a product business. But when I started out, I think I actually started my first attempt at a product business around 2008, so almost 10 years ago now.
Wow.
When I first started, I was really horrible at it. And I actually went through 7 attempts at starting a product business. The 6th of those 7 attempts was the first one that really made any money. I had one that made like $5, but it made like $5 of Google AdSense revenue over the course of its lifetime, but it never made more than that. So the first one that made more than $5 was my 6th attempt. And we can talk about that if you want to, but that was 5 years of pain and frustration. I started this product that was scheduling software for hair salons.
Okay.
And I eventually figured out that it was never going to work out. Anyway, I killed that business in like the fall of 2015.
What was that called?
It was called Snip.
Snip?
Snip Salon Software.
Okay.
Yep. And you won't find that anywhere online if you Google for it, but you might find the remnants and traces of it online. But the next thing was this book. So I noticed that with these 2 particular programming technologies, I tried to use them together, but it was hard. And there wasn't a lot of documentation out there to use these 2 things together. Those 2 things being a framework called Angular and another framework called Ruby on Rails. Tried to use them together, found it difficult, had to really carve my own path. And so I figured, well, I'm not the only person in the world trying to use these 2 things together. I think there's a lot of other people trying to use these 2 technologies, but for whatever reason, not a lot of people have written about it. So I decided to write about my experience and say, hey, if you want to do this particular thing, this is how you do it. If you're just getting started, here's what you do. If you need to do this, here's what you do. And my blog posts got a lot of traction. I don't think I had the intention when I started of turning it into a business. But when I got so much traffic, it showed me that there was something there. And I went to a conference in the spring of 2016 where I told some people about this idea, and they're like, hey, you should sell courses. And I'm like, that's an interesting idea. But for whatever reason, I decided to write my book before I put out the courses. So that was in April that I went to the conference, and then I spent a little bit of time just writing more material and stuff like that. But then in June of 2016, I did a pre-sale. Mm-hmm. So I sent out an email to my list of subscribers and said, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. It doesn't exist yet, but you can buy it right now if you want to, and then on September 1st, it'll be delivered. And to my astonishment, 7 people bought the book. And that's not a ton of people. It's not a ton of money either. But it was enough to tell me that if I expended the effort in writing the book, it wouldn't be a total waste of time.
Right.
So I wrote it, and then when I released it around September 1st, I actually released it slightly early in late August. But when I released it, I sold about $1,000 worth of the book. That was great.
Wow.
Then I went back and I went over my book and basically just recorded myself going through my own book and sold that as a video package. And the month that I released that video package, I made about $1,600 that month. And then things died down after that, and I had kind of a plateau where I was at about $400 a month for a while. That kind of brings us to the present. April has been a little better. As of today, it's $550.50 is my revenue for April. But I'm working on getting that up to where it can be a full-time income.
Okay. Awesome. So what are some of the things that you're going through right now to, you said you took the original book, you did pre-sale, and then you went and did some revisions, and then you went and you actually recorded yourself reading through the book and kind of giving additional instructions. What are some of the things that you're doing now to help bring those sales up?
Yeah, good question. So I'll first talk about why sales went down. So I released the book and I made about $1,000. Then the next month I made like $1,600, and that, this was like September and October, and so I noticed this, $1,000, $1,600, and I was like, oh, what's November going to be like?
Right.
2,000? What's it going to be?
Just keep
It's
going.
going up and up, yeah. And then November was like actually I know the exact number is 871. And so it went back down, and then December was like 400 something. And it's like, okay, we're not on a permanent upward swing. It's going back down. So I'm not 100% sure what happened, but I know a couple things. One is that I changed my site in such a way that fewer people were opting in. And I'll explain what I mean when I say opting in. So kind of the backbone of my business is my subscriber list. I have a list of the email addresses of people who are interested in the stuff that I talk about. When you go to angularonrails.com, you're presented with a lead magnet. It's this free guide that I put together, and it's like, hey, put in your name and email address, and I'll give you this free guide. And so people come there and they sign up, and that's how I build my list. At one point, I was getting, in October, I had 300 people opt in.
Wow.
But then for comparison, in March, I only had 100 people opt in. So it went way down. And so I looked at that and I'm like, why did that go down? Well, one problem is I used to have what they call a toaster, a thing in the lower right-hand corner of the browser that would pop up and say, here's my free guide, put in your email. For some reason, I took the toaster away. I guess I didn't think it would have an effect if I took it away, but it clearly did. And then when I didn't put the toaster back, I put something back that was similar. But when I put that thing back, the opt-ins went right back up. And so now I'm back to getting like 40-some opt-ins a week, which is like 160 plus per month. And that's good. That's, coming from 100 a month in March. going to somewhere between 160 and 200 opt-ins is pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that number for now. So that's one thing, is increasing the opt-ins. Another thing was that I took a look at all my conversion rates for everything on my site. So I have a sales page where I present my book and a couple other products. So I have 3 tiers of product that I sell. As of March, I had a $39 ebook. I had an $89 video package, which I referred to earlier. And then I had a third, like, higher package that the price for that just said custom. That's like if you need like team training, or you need like a team license for the book, you want to buy it for 10 people or something like that.
Okay.
So it didn't have a specific price attached to it. It just said custom.
Mm-hmm.
And it was presented in that order, 39, 89 custom. And I was steering people really hard toward the $39 product because I knew the video package, I had created that video package in like October, and it was now March, and it was just getting more and more stale and out of date and less useful, less helpful. So I actually didn't really want people to buy it because I knew it was old. And you know, a few months might not sound that old, but with this particular technology,
It moves that fast.
yeah, which is really annoying for me, who has to keep updating all this stuff. So I went back and updated the video package, and then I changed some things on my sales page. So I reversed the order. Instead of going $39.89 custom, first of all, I put a price on the custom package. I changed it to $250 plus. I think it's worded as like starting at $250, or rather $249. So I'm presenting it in the opposite order, where I say corporate package $249, video package $99, and book $49. So I raised my price on the book and video package by $10 each, and then I put a price on the custom package. And the reason I reversed the order was for anchoring. So if everything's anchored at 39, it's like, well, 89 is expensive compared to 39. But if they're presented the other way, you see the 249, it's like, oh, 99's a pretty good deal compared to the 249.
Interesting.
So that's why I did it that way.
Okay.
So that was another one of the things. So I had 4 certain goals that I set in the recent past. Just in the last couple of weeks, I set these goals. One was to triple the number of opt-ins. Another one was to double my traffic, and I'll talk about what that involves in a second. The third one was First one was triple my opt-ins. Second was double my average sale, because if you double your average sale, then you double your total sales.
Right.
Third one was to 2x my traffic, and then the last one was to double my average sale, again, by adding a higher tier product. So like a $500 or a $1,000 product. And that's kind of way down the road. But the plan is to do these things, is 3x my opt-in rate, 2x my average sale, 2x my traffic, and then 2x my average sale again. None of those things are like very crazy. Like those are very much within the realm of reality. And like, for example, the traffic, that's just a matter of doing more of what I've already done. Like if I write blog posts, I get more traffic. I've found that to be true. Mm-hmm. So it stands to reason that if I write more blog posts,
content, more people keep seeing it.
Exactly. So there's no like huge mystery to be solved there. It's just a matter of putting in the work. But if you combine a 3x with a 2x with a 2x with another 2x, that all comes out to, I believe, a 24x. Mm-hmm. I formulated this plan when I was, my most recent month was like $400. 24 times 400 is 9,600. Where the reason those numbers are important is because my goal is to get to 10,000 a month with the product. That's kind of like my magic number to where like I don't need to do anything else to be able to support my family and stuff like that. So take those numbers, 24x 400, it gets you to 9,600. So that's my plan for getting to where I am today. to getting to where I want to be at that point.
Awesome. I love the process that you've kind of explained so far, because it's just like, that's business in a product. So you had a plan, you did testing up front, you found what the market was interested in, you got those 7 pre-sales, then you went and developed the product, then you're making changes to not only some of the product, but how it's offered in some different tiers. So you're adding just the book and the video and special consulting. So the way that you're offering it, you're kind of watching the data and making changes and going and changing as you go, which is just, that's like, it seems like it's business in a product. It's cool.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good way to go about it. And all these smart things that I've done recently are a result of doing a bunch of stupid things
Yep.
8 years prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now how does this, now when you set up, I always talk about, setting up a business plan. It's a great theory of how you set up your goals for this month, the next month, and the next month. It's a great theory of where things should go, but everything changes, and you have to adapt and make changes as you go. So how is this comparing to what you set out up front, to when you were going to be to a certain point?
Great question. I had set some certain goals a really long time ago. I think around 2010, I had set a goal. So in 2010, I was like 26 years old. So is that right? I don't know. So I set
somewhere around there.
Yeah, no, that's right. I was 26 in 2010. I had set a goal to be completely supported by a product business by age 30.
Okay.
And I completely missed that goal. I'm 33 now, still not even close to being fully supported by a product business.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, totally missed that goal. I had another couple goals that I set when I was 26. One was to be a millionaire by age 35, and the other was to be a decamillionaire, so 10 million by age 40. And I'm not 35 yet, so anything could happen. But it'll take an absolute miracle to get there by then. But even if it takes until 38 to become a millionaire, I'll still take it, I guess. But yeah, those are my big goals. But I also have finer and finer grained goals. So in a year, I might have a goal to make a certain amount of money that year. And I've been doing pretty good as far as those goals go, just because in addition to the product stuff, I do freelancing,
service-based,
and consulting. Yeah. So that part has been going well, and I've been making more and more money that way. But the thing I don't like about that, of course, is I don't like the whole trading time for money thing. I value the freedom that a product business can offer. So that's where I'm headed with that. But
that's one thing
at this point.
Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
That's one thing that I'm running into right now with perception engineering. I mean, you have billable hours for mechanical design. So every hour that you do work for, you can bill that hour, and then it just relies on you having the right team and the right people with the right knowledge to be able to get those billable hours. And it's just so reliant on putting in the time. If you don't put in that 10 hours, 12 hours of work that day, you don't get paid. So
Yeah.
it's definitely makes the product base attractive.
Yeah, and I really hate that hourly model. So for my consulting work, and by the way, a lot of people say consulting when they really mean contracting. Like when I go and work for somebody and I kind of plug into their team and they make the plans and they tell me what to do and I just do the work, that's not consulting. People use the word consulting for that, but it's not.
Yep.
It's just contracting. I've been moving into consulting where I'm not billing by the hour, I'm billing by the project.
Okay.
And instead of being paid for implementation, I'm paid for some sort of result.
Mm-hmm.
And that's much better, and the compensation can be a lot better for that. And the stress can be high too, but it's just totally different because the clock isn't ticking the whole time.
Yep.
Like if you want to get up from your desk and take a walk, feel free. You don't have to stop the timer if you want to go do that, and that's just a great feeling.
Yep. It's just like, I've heard the example before of taking your car into the shop, you get an oil change, you pay a certain amount of money for an oil change. If people can do it faster, that just means they can move more and more oil changes through the shop. And that's when you're looking at quoting a job complete. You can take a little bit longer if you need to. but you can do it faster and move more projects through if possible, as opposed to an hourly model. You have 10 hours worth of work. It's going to take 10 hours to get it done.
Exactly.
Interesting. So cool. I really like kind of where you've gone with telling the whole story about not only the book, but your background. So in the book, with sales and converting to a project-based business model, you talked about how you got up and there's some months that you had just had great sales and the business looked like it was heading in the right direction, and then the next month it shot back down, trying to figure out what happened. Obviously the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and the struggles of owning a business. What are some of the things that just keep you motivated and keep you just going on it? I mean, that this is the right route to go, and just not to throw it all in.
Well, for a long time I've been motivated by pain and dissatisfaction. So at first it was the dissatisfaction of having to go into an office every day and just be there all day. Look out the window and it's a beautiful day outside and you're stuck inside all day. That sucks. Mm-hmm. So I was motivated by that. And especially after I had kids, because you're at work all day, you get home, make dinner, put the kids to bed, then it's time for you to go to bed, and then you get up the next day and do it all over again. And it's like, what, is this the plan for the next 30 or 40 years or whatever? That doesn't sound very good to me. So I was motivated by that. And then I got into the freelancing, and I was motivated by a similar thing. Because most freelancing is just a notch or two away from a full-time job. You might be able to work from home, and that's great. But if you're punching the clock, then it's still the same kind of arrangement where you're trading time for money. Mm-hmm. And so I was driven by that frustration. And at this point, I don't have quite as much pain and frustration as I used to, which is great after having moved more toward the project-based stuff. But I am motivated by that light at the end of the tunnel of having a lot more time freedom. With the project stuff, it can be less work for more money, and that's great, but it's always going to be some amount of work.
Right.
With the product stuff, you totally decouple your time from your income. And so if you set it up right, and then you want to take a vacation for a couple weeks or whatever, if you want to take a vacation for 6 months, people do that, mm-hmm. who run product businesses. And especially if you just sell the whole thing to somebody else, you can just be done with everything and just do whatever you want for the whole rest of your life. And that's my ultimate goal, and that's what motivates me.
Interesting. I like it. Very, very, very interesting to hear your thoughts on how you're keeping moving forward when you started because of the pain of going to work every day and not having a little bit more flexibility, which you needed now that you have a family. So really neat. One thing that I wanted to ask is, how did you determine, I guess, to get into software? Something you're passionate about, something you're knowledgeable about. What kind of drove you into getting into kind of the software and developing?
The way I got into that was actually not like through deliberate choice or anything, really. My dad is a programmer, and so we just always had computers and like programming books around and stuff like that. There was no real internet when I started, so I had to just like punch stuff into the computer and like see if it worked. There was no Googling for the answer because there was no Google, obviously. But that's kind of how I got started. And once I got into it, it made sense to me. It was something that kind of came naturally to me, and just stuck with it ever since then.
Awesome. Well, I know you got to go, so I'm gonna wrap up with just 2 more quick questions that you can just quick fire at. What's your favorite book?
That's a really interesting question. I almost always tell people that my favorite book is a tie between How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is I actually got my hands on an original copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it's way different.
Really?
Yeah, not way different, but different enough that you definitely notice it. And so if you ever get a chance to get your hands on an old copy,
Original copy.
it's pretty interesting to notice the differences.
Okay, I'll have to check that out for sure. Then the second quick question is, when I looked around online, there's multiple different websites to get a hold of you. I saw Jason Swett, Angler on Rails, Ben Franklin Labs, and what's the best way if someone wants to get a hold of you or look up more about what you're doing to do that?
Yeah, I think the best place for this is jasonswett.net.
Perfect.
Yeah, I do a couple things on there. Like I have something I call the Entrepreneurship Journal, where I just kind of record what I'm doing and where I'm trying to get to and stuff like that.
Awesome.
And then I do a monthly income report too.
Sweet. No, I'll definitely be checking that out a little bit more. I know I looked at it a little bit this week in preparation to talk to you today, but I'll be keeping tabs on that as well. And again, appreciate your time, Jason, and glad we finally got this to work out, and apologize for the technical difficulties on my end, but we'll have to get together in person sometime soon. I'll have to show you around the office here.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your day, Jason, and thanks again.